It was meant to be a routine departure, a standard flight to Beijing that occurs dozens of times a day. But at 3:45 p.m., as the boarding announcement echoed through the terminal, the seats reserved for two of China's brightest stars remained empty. Instead of the usual flash of cameras capturing airport fashion, witnesses describe a scene of absolute chaos unfolding behind the exclusive doors of the VIP lounge. An ambulance screaming towards the terminal, medical personnel rushing across the polished floors, and a flight that ultimately left without them. When news broke that Zhao Lusi had collapsed just minutes before boarding, it sent a shockwave far greater than a simple medical update. This wasn't just a faint. It was a terrifying moment where the glitz of the entertainment world shattered to reveal a stark, unsettling reality. Why did witnesses describe seeing pure fear in Liu Yunning's eyes as he stood by her side? And why does the official explanation of a missed meal feel like it is barely scratching the surface of a much darker truth? Welcome to Update X100H, where today we are not just reading the headlines. We are looking at the human cost hidden behind the glamour. To understand the gravity of what transpired on that afternoon, we must look beyond the sterile press releases and piece together the fragmented yet harrowing accounts from those who were there. The atmosphere in the departure hall shifted from anticipation to alarm in a matter of moments. Observers noted that long before the ambulance arrived, the signs of a looming crisis were written all over the young actress's demeanor. This was not the vibrant, energetic figure we see lighting up our screens in dramas like Hidden Love. Instead, eyewitnesses describe a heartbreaking image of a young woman clinging to the walls for support, her complexion drained of all color, her steps faltering as if the sheer weight of gravity had suddenly increased. It paints a picture of someone whose body was screaming for rest long before it finally gave up the fight. Standing amidst this unfolding emergency was Liu Yunning. In an industry where co-stars often maintain a calculated distance in public to avoid the swirling rumors of romance, the crisis stripped away all pretense of image management. Those present reported that he did not leave her side. The panic and distress on his face were visible, a raw human reaction to seeing a colleague, a friend, crumbling before his eyes. His silence on social media in the aftermath has been deafening to fans. It is not the silence of indifference, but rather the heavy silence of someone who has witnessed a genuine scare, a moment that perhaps made the relentless pursuit of fame seem suddenly, sharply insignificant. It raises the question of what truly happens in those quiet, terrifying minutes whilst waiting for paramedics, when the cameras are off and the vulnerability is absolute. However, to label this merely as an unfortunate medical episode is to ignore the elephant in the room. When we analyze the timeline leading up to this collapse, the data is nothing short of alarming. In the 45 days preceding this incident, records suggest that Zhao Lusi was active, filming, traveling, or performing for 43 of them. Let that sink in for a moment. 43 days of high-pressure performance with barely a moment to breathe. This is not just a busy schedule. It is an industrial-scale endurance test. In the competitive world of sea entertainment, there is an unwritten rule that says you must strike while the iron is hot. But what happens when the iron is being struck so hard and so often that it begins to fracture? The industry operates on a model that demands omnipresence. If you are not filming, you are flying. If you are not flying, you are fitting costumes. If you are not fitting, you are streaming. It is a relentless, breathless marathon run at a sprinter's pace. The official statement from the studios cited exhaustion and low blood sugar due to irregular eating. While medically plausible, many fans and industry insiders feel this explanation is a diplomatic euphemism, a soft cover for a systemic issue that plagues the industry's top tier. It frames the incident as a personal failure to eat lunch, rather than an institutional failure to provide rest. It is a narrative designed to reassure investors and brands that the asset is fine, whilst ignoring the human being who is clearly pushed to her physiological limit. We see this pattern repeated time and again. A star collapses, a generic statement is issued, and within days they are back on the treadmill, smiling for the cameras as if the breakdown never happened. But the body keeps the score. The pale face and the trembling hands at the airport were the body's way of issuing a final warning that no contract clause can override. There is also a profound psychological dimension to this event that is rarely discussed. Imagine the isolation of that experience, being surrounded by handlers, managers, and fans, yet being physically unable to stand. The pressure to maintain the perfect, bubbly persona of the nation's sweetheart, even when you feel your consciousness slipping away, must be an immense burden. For female stars in particular, there is little room for frailty. To be sick is often perceived as being difficult or unprofessional. One can only imagine the internal battle she fought in those 20 minutes before the collapse. The will to push through, to make the flight, to not let the team down, fighting against a biology that had simply had enough. It is a lonely battle fought in the most public of arenas. As we reflect on the image of that cancelled flight and the rush to the hospital, it serves as a sobering reminder that behind the filtered photos and the perfectly curated social media feeds, these idols are flesh and blood. They are just as susceptible to the limits of biology as any of us. The glamour is the product, but the person is the cost. We hope this incident serves not just as a headline, but as a turning point, a moment where the industry pauses, takes a breath, and realizes that no drama, no endorsement, and no flight is worth the price of a person's health. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. It is stories like these that remind us of the importance of empathy and understanding in a world that often prioritizes speed and surface-level perfection. We create these videos not to spread rumors, but to foster a community that cares about the people behind the personas. If this story resonated with you, or if you believe that health should always come before fame, please consider subscribing to Update X.14H. By joining our channel, you become part of a conversation that seeks to look deeper and understand better. We appreciate every single one of you who takes the time to watch, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support allows us to keep bringing you the truth with compassion and integrity. Please take care of yourselves and those around you, because at the end of the day, our well-being is the most precious script we will ever write. Until next time, stay safe and stay tuned.